Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Racing Mentor Sponsorship Podcast. We are going to be talking about running a newsletter as a racing driver today. But first, I want to jump in with a fun fact about Toby, who is here with me today. I'm just so excited about this one, Toby. I didn't want to wait.
Just go straight for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to just jump in. So Toby used to be scared of water and scared of the house flooding when his sister ran a bath.
Yeah, that's so true. That's a long story. I think that deserves a whole podcast, that one.
Yeah. Should we combine it with like my fear of volcanoes that is completely irrational, that I thought was like a real threat to my North Norfolk home?
Why not? Volcanoes in Norfolk.
Yeah.
Jess's fun fact this week is that she got her first tattoo at the age of 15. But the interesting part of it was paid for people on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, how did that come about, Jess?
All my internet friends paid for it for my 15th birthday. I was a very active member of the forum for the band The Darkness.
Right.
And I met a bunch of great people there who became some of my best friends, and one moved to live near me and all of that kind of thing. But as we were becoming friends, when they came and hung out for my 15th birthday, they paid for me to get like a small lightning bolt tattoo on my back.
That's pretty cool, to be fair.
Yeah.
How awesome.
Yeah, and that was 15 years ago. That was before it was kind of safe and cool to meet people online. I don't know if it's safe and cool now to anyone who's listening who's thinking about meeting someone online, but
yes, that's really rock and roll.
Yeah, I was pretty rock and roll before I became a staunch rules follower.
Fair play.
Yeah. Anyway, how are you doing today, Toby? I don't want to miss out on a little pre-podcast chat.
No worries. Yes, as always, mate. I'm very good. I've got a cup of tea. I'm looking forward to record another awesome podcast with you. How are things your way?
Yeah, really good. I guess I went through a bit of a down spell. I was just feeling a bit angry about everything, but I've come out the other side, and I'm super bubbly, bouncy, excited and enthusiastic. I'm ready to just go with everything.
Wicked.
That's my mindset today.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Especially while the weather's been a bit rubbish lately, it's good to have a positive.
Yeah.
Positive, is that right?
I have to say, I'm sick of cycling in the rain, which I do every day.
It's been pretty grim, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I've been doing my morning runs in the rain, and it's quite refreshing. But you look out the window and go, "Oh, I don't really want it today," but you've got to get out there. So
yeah, exactly.
I had motivated people.
Yeah, all the great plans to write an article before we did this podcast. Bearing in mind it's 8:15 as we record. I wanted to be up at 6, write an article, do the podcast, go to the office, just win the day. Yeah, I rolled out of bed at 7:30.
It's all good.
Didn't get much done. Anyway, so right, let's talk about growing an email list as a racing driver, and kind of what that means and all the benefits. But before we kind of go into the tips and things, Toby, you have a newsletter, don't you?
Yeah, I started one right from the start, I think it was. Signed up to an engine to use. Got a few people in. I think the list was very small to start with. Now I'm at 150 people on my newsletter, and I really like it. I haven't actually used it for a while, which is a little bit annoying because I've kind of let it slip. But it's a really nice space to kind of just tell your most loyal fans and followers and the people that are engaged with your story, to give them something unique. I really like a newsletter. I know you've got plenty of experience with these, Jess. How do you find them?
Yeah, I love them because it's so much more personal to email someone than it is to just post something on social media and hope that someone sees it. It's direct to your fans or to your prospects. So I think it's really valuable in that way. And I obviously have the Racing Mentor newsletter that has thousands of drivers and people interested in motorsport careers on now, and it's a really, really valuable tool, not just for sharing what I'm doing and maybe promoting some products or something like that, but it's a really great way for me to share extra value with those people who have taken the time to give me their email address and sign up for something. So I tend to give people who are on the newsletter, or subscribe to that like a little bit more than maybe I do on social media, because I know it's going direct to them and I know a bit more about them, whereas social media, it could be going to anyone.
Yeah, it kind of feels. I feel like when you post to social media, I think obviously it has its purpose and it's
Mm,
really good at kind of keeping people up to date and stuff. But yeah, there is something really powerful with a newsletter, isn't there? That kind of like you feel like you're kind of writing to your best friends,
yeah.
versus just posting to the world, say, hey, I'm doing this or this is what I've achieved, etc.
Mm,
But yeah, it feels like you kind of just writing to a friend, and I write mine in quite long form. I know you do, Jess.
hmm
With pictures, and you can create it however you want it to look. You're not bound to the way social media's put out there, and you can go as cool, as wacky as you want as well, which is what's really cool.
Yeah, I'm actually, so for years with the Racing Mentor newsletter, I always sent like just updates as and when I kind of had them, if I wanted to share a bit of information or there was like a webinar coming up or something. But I'm trying something new as of this month, so anyone who's on the list will have already got this, but more of a kind of a clear roundup, because I'm producing so much content. Obviously we're doing this podcast, I've got videos going out, I'm writing articles, I'm doing webinars, all of that kind of thing. I wanted just kind of like a roundup newsletter that comes with like one really clear, actionable piece of advice, and then just in case you missed it, here's the most popular podcast episode this month and the most popular blog post. And just kind of looking at the clicks and things, I think that's gone down quite well with people.
Nice.
So I'm kind of experimenting with that, but I really like just the chatty, informal style a lot more. And actually, I've got two other newsletters that are one's about electric cars and one's about just me as an entrepreneur and what I get up to and all of that kind of thing. And they're very much more like chatty insights into my life crossed with an article. So yeah, I just think newsletters are really powerful for just reaching someone in a much more like personal way. And I feel like there's a lot of potential that drivers are missing out on in using their newsletters for fan engagement, prospect engagement, and also for keeping their sponsors up to date as well.
Yeah, because newsletters are super, super engaging, aren't they? Because
Yeah.
the person receiving it feels like they're part of your story. It feels very personal, doesn't it? And that encourages people to be more engaged with you.
hmm
With simple call to actions on your newsletter, people are going to follow that on, aren't they? They've got the interest in you, so they're going to kind of follow on from what you're asking them to do as well.
Exactly. And so let's start by talking about, using a newsletter for fan engagement, because this won't necessarily work for every driver, because I feel like there are a lot of drivers out there who they don't rely on fans to provide value to sponsors, but then some do. So let's talk about the fan aspect, because obviously a fan could always turn into a sponsor as well. So it's kind of an important thing to think about. But I think, again, this comes down to brand and audience, as does everything. So thinking about kind of who is it that you're targeting? Do you want to use a newsletter to speak to your fans? Do you have a lot of people out there, or the potential for a lot of people out there to want to support you and want to follow your career? As I said, not all drivers will have this, and that's fine. But I know you kind of, your newsletter, Toby, is kind of a blended approach. It is for your fans and your
Yeah.
supporters, but there are sponsors in there as well.
Yeah, I have. I have a really nice mix. I think this rewinds back for me to the relationship building part of the sponsorship process. Jess, I like to get on board so much with my sponsors that they almost are my fans.
Exactly.
So whenever I write my newsletters, I'm writing it kind of in a fan based type of sort of content, I suppose. But the fact that my sponsors are so engaged with my story and what I'm up to and stuff, it kind of keeps them on board with what I'm doing, month by month. And that's the frequency I was posting at the time. So it's really cool actually. I really like the fact that I've got that nice mix rather than it being just a fan based one, no sponsors included. I even actually have put prospective sponsors on that list as well. So there's a few of them on there last year that was prospective to what would have been this season. Unfortunately, COVID, that meant they couldn't sponsor me this year, which was a shame. But it allowed them to learn a bit more about me, my story, what I got up to, and what I do. So it showed how important that was to do as well, Jess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of prospect engagement is great. Like if you've had some really like strong, interesting like conversations with a potential sponsor, but for whatever reason the process just takes a long time, because sometimes it does with big business,
Yeah.
it's always worth, asking if they want to be part of your newsletter, because like everything that you then send is just nudging them closer to making a decision.
Yeah.
So, if you're posting about your wins and the coverage you got, great. If you're posting about other like benefits that your sponsors have had from you, so like let's say you do a track day, for example, and you're sending a newsletter about that, they're going to see that and be like, wow, that looks like so much fun. My employees or whoever would love that. And you're kind of like just moving them closer towards this decision to sponsor you.
Yeah, and I think just on that note, Jess, as well, with regards to like the fan engagement, is you don't know how influential your fans are in their own workplace. I.e., that fan could be a director, it could be senior manager, it could just be, you know, any member of staff in the company, but influential to what happens to the business decisions.
Mm.
Um, and if they're getting excited about these things that are happening, you don't know what conversations they're then going to have and go, oh, look, I follow this racing driver. They've done a business like media day, or they did a track day with their guests, and these are the responses that they've had. It's been amazing. I think we should get involved. You just don't know what can come your way. So it just shows that kind of real kind of almost one-to-one interaction engagement with the people that are on your list. Who knows where that's going to come?
Mm.
And I've recently had a conversation, and Jess, I haven't actually spoke to you about this, but I've recently had a conversation with someone that was part of my that's part of my newsletter, but I haven't actually used it for a while. But when I was actually interacting on there, obviously he was reading each one that was coming out, and he actually has recently messaged me. He's got himself a promotion at work, where he's now in a director role of the company, and he wants to now look at potentially how we can get involved next year. So
Amazing.
yeah, like it does work, and whether or not that comes off at the moment is a bit uncertain. But the fact we're having these conversations, I think, really, really cool. So yeah, it's just a cool
There you
message
go.
about.
That's the power of a newsletter right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like everything you're saying is super relevant to your existing sponsors as well. So like keeping that relationship there is great for renewal time, but also showing, so for example, if you pitch to a smaller sponsor, maybe it's a product deal or something like that, and you are doing just a small amount for them, if they see like the big things that you're doing for other sponsors, that can lead them to go, oh, next year I want to do this big track day, or I want to have this big like hospitality meetup for all of our employees or something like that. So just keeping sponsors kind of engaged with what you're doing, I think a newsletter is really important for that as well.
Yeah, and that becomes an additional form of relationship building, Jess, doesn't it? Because you're kind of keeping that kind of them touch points going on a regular basis, without being too direct. You actually kind of, this is almost a broadcast to your audience,
Mm.
and it's just nice to kind of engage in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can't forget that this is like a really great form of relationship building.
No.
And obviously we've talked about that in detail before. We've done, webinars and things on it, but kind of building that rapport with fans, with potential sponsors, and with your sponsors is such an important part of then the sales process.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be so much easier for you, for example, Toby, to, find a sponsorship deal and sell to this person that got in contact with you after reading your newsletter for so long, than it would be to go and pitch cold to the same business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think building a relationship in that way and letting them get to know you, and again, email feels really personal, I think is so valuable. So anyone who's thinking about a newsletter and isn't sure why, the relationship building aspect is massive.
Yeah, hugely. Jess, can we just quickly talk about branding on newsletters?
Yeah.
Because I think with social media, it's obviously it's very easy to show your branding on there, but you are kind of bound to what your posts look like based on obviously the structure of social media, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Obviously, you're bound to their rules almost.
Yeah.
Albeit you can put your own branding on there, but you are kind of bound to obviously the way it all looks. But I really love the fact that with newsletters, you can really push your brand out there properly, because you can create your newsletter to look however you want it to look. You
Yeah.
can, it's your space to make it how you wish. You're not bound to any particular rules.
Mm.
And I think that's a really nice part as well, because you can make it look so slick, and pops of color. You can put brand messages on there, and you literally can go to town. And I love that part of it. You can get really creative. Something that I done as a little tip, guys, is that I made my newsletter last year as like a format. So I've got a structured format, so when people get it, they know roughly where to go down on the page if they want to quickly scan, oh, I want to find out about this part, or I want to click to see what something Toby's done or recorded, etc. So I've kind of kept quite a consistent format, but it's all very branded. And I think that's kind of, if people haven't got time to read the whole thing, at least they can quickly scan through and pick out the bits they want.
Yeah, and I actually think that's a really great a great way of doing things as a racing driver. In business, there are two schools of thought about this. There's the clear branded kind of newsletters that they can often be quite cold. And think about any kind of retailer that you've signed up to, those kinds of like really branded newsletters that are just like, here's a thing that you need to know about. Whereas there's another school of thought that's like, no, it needs to look like a direct personal email.
Yeah.
So, hello, and then you put the name tag, so it says hi, Toby or whatever, and then go into something as if it's written to that person, but with minimal branding.
Yeah.
But I actually think the approach for a racing driver, and actually just as you've done, Toby, should be a blend of those two things. So clear branding looks professional, but it's still a personal message from me to you kind of thing.
Yeah, and I pretty much write mine like that. I'm like quite casual, like, hey, hope you're good kind of thing, and just write like I'm chatting to a friend.
Yeah.
But I keep my branding sort of in with that, so it's kind of, it all looks TTR, and it's all kind of fresh. So, but yeah, you have got to get that blend right, haven't you? Because you don't want people to click on it and go, oh, it's another sales thing. We get so many of them anyway, don't we? That I delete so many of my newsletters that I don't actually read.
Yeah.
The ones I do read are ones like from yourself, Jess, where I'm interested in your story and I want to hear what you're up to and what's going on. And because it feels like you write to me when I get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool, Jess has done this. Like,
yeah,
it goes down well.
Yeah, and that's good to hear. And I really love newsletters. So I'm signed up to so many from people that kind of do my job in different industries. So lots of like business people that teach SEO, people that like teach social media, business coaches, all those kinds of people. And they often send just like really, really short newsletters that are, like, they might look strangely formatted if you were like to try and read it as an article or something, but basically there's like one sentence per line, so it's really, really easy to scan read. And in the podcast show notes, I'll add some screenshots of ones that I really like, but they're just really, really chatty, really, really personal. And I feel like I'm being written to myself, even though, this is someone, who might have hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people on their list. But I still feel like part of the story almost. And I really, really like newsletters like that, because they're usually like just short, but really, really hard hitting. So like from the point of view of someone like me who is trying to teach something and running a business, just going in with like short pieces of content that directly email to people with some advice is really appealing. But then actually I also really like writing long stories. So I haven't quite mastered that like really short, simple email just yet, I don't think.
Yeah, but it's all like it's all kind of like a testing, isn't it? As you grow and develop, it's the more experiments you do, the more you kind of, because you get stats, don't you? You get to see what's going on and how people click and read and stuff. So yeah, I think it's all part of the learning process. But you just mentioned, Jess, about mailing lists as huge as possibly into the millions, definitely tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, which would be an awesome goal to achieve.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've only got a very small, it's mid hundreds now.
Yeah.
But I'm proud of that. It's nice that I've got that community of people that really engage with my story. But you're a real expert in this, Jess, for sure, because you've got a really, really big list of people now on your social media and obviously onto your mailing list that you use. So can you give some tips of like kind of giving people a reason to sign up so that they can get on with your newsletter?
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of drivers rely on someone signing up just because they want to support that driver and find out what they're racing.
Yeah.
And actually that means drivers are missing a trick, because let's say that you are a driver who is really focused on like the engineering side of things. People might not be interested in supporting you, but they might be interested in seeing how you're building a race car.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, really, really important to think about your audience and what they want, and basically then give it to them. So I use a lot of lead magnets, and this is a great thing that drivers can do as well. Basically, a lead magnet is something that you offer for free, but they can only get it if they sign up to your newsletter. And you guys will probably have seen that I've done lots of these to entice you onto mine. So for example, let's keep with that kind of technical engineering driver side of things. You might, offer a piece of video content that shows how you do something technical with the race car. Or you might literally just keep it really simple and be like, if you want to keep up to date with the race car build, sign up here. So think beyond, hey, if you'd like to support me, or if you want to keep up to date on my racing, you need to give people a reason to sign up beyond that, because not everyone will be interested in the support aspect in exactly the same way with sponsorship, when you're not asking people to sponsor you to support you, or I hope you're not. But it's the same with your fans and prospects. Like, don't just rely on support. Give them something of value from day one with your newsletter, and that's when they will like slowly fall in love with you and they want to sponsor you.
and that's the thing though, isn't it, Jess? You're giving them a reason to sign up, and you can kind of lean on your niche and whatever your niche is as a driver there, can't you? Because whatever your expertise in, you can then search for people, or you can get people that are kind of interested in that niche themselves, and then they're more encouraged to sign up. Speaking about lead magnets, Jess, that's literally how I started with you.
Yeah.
I think I signed up to your newsletter when I was Googling what was going on with sponsorship and how I can get sponsorship and do it the right way. And I remember seeing a website, and I can't remember what it was that it said, but I remember like, oh, I need that. I clicked it. Okay, I'm happy to give my email address away. Got some free content. The content was totally awesome. And then I just followed from there and bought your book and met you, and here
Awesome.
I am today, Jess. So there you go.
Definitely from like a business point of view, like lead magnets and newsletters are so valuable. And I think because we want more drivers to be thinking like businesses,
Yeah,
I think it's worth looking at what Racing Mentor has done, but also look at maybe people like Ramit Sethi, who's he's an American kind of like business coach, and his website sounds really, really cheesy. It's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich, but it's incredible content.
it's great.
So maybe like if you guys want to see other examples of great newsletters, look at what he's doing. Also Neil Patel, who does a lot of kind of like digital marketing, but it's mostly search engine optimization stuff. He's got a great newsletter. And also Janet Murray, who I feel like I'm talking about like every episode at the moment. But again, she talks about social media, branding, growing your audience. Again, she's got a really great newsletter, and she actually does daily ones, which are incredible, and they're really short to the point, really funny, but with like a really clear takeaway. So if you want to look at what a good daily email looks like, and I'm not saying you should do daily, it's a lot of work, but has a really, really good for that kind of short, sharp, to the point kind of content marketing. That's what this is.
Yeah, her daily one's really good. I'm actually signed up to hers myself, and
Yeah.
it is very good. It looks a hell of a lot of effort, but
Yeah.
it kind of it just proves a point that Janet Murray stays in the forefront of your mind, Jess, because obviously you
That's
still
right, yeah.
mention her. I don't think you would if she didn't do her daily email, because you're kind of getting that
Not in the
daily
same
refresh.
way.
Yeah, so it can be really powerful if you use it in the right way. It just shows how powerful it can be of keeping that person in the front of your mind. And if you want to be the driver where you want to sort of stand out and stuff, doing those extra things can really make a difference.
And I feel like that daily email from Janet Murray's really inspired me, because I have been toying with the idea for Racing Mentor.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be a thing that I would send to like the entire list, because I don't think everyone needs that much contact from me, but I might make it a separate thing for people to sign up to if they just want like a daily nudge that's going, are you doing the sponsorship? Which is basically what it would be. Here's a tip to try today. I just really love the idea of that. So I think it'd be really valuable, because I find that a lot of drivers will have like just a spurt of like really excited hard work and then nothing. So I think if I can like help keep people accountable by appearing in their inbox every morning, then maybe that would work. But I guess this is a good platform to ask on. Like, if you guys want a daily email from me, tell me and you will get it, because I do everything for you guys.
I'll click the yes right now, Jess. Go for
it. Yeah? Okay.
Why not?
One. Okay.
That's your first sign up.
To be fair, that's all I need.
Job done, yeah.
Yeah, I've got all like the content ideas rattling around my head ready to go.
Yeah, I can hear them cogs whirring now, Jess.
Yeah.
I know what you'll be doing after this podcast recording.
Yeah, exactly.
But can we talk a little bit about the comparison to social media? Because the really smart thing with using mail lists is that you're not bound to the algorithms of social media. Obviously, we've talked a lot about social media, how powerful it can be. It's a really great space, and we're not going to be putting social media down. However, you do rely on algorithms to reach your current audience, because not everyone's going to see the posts that you put out unless social media believe that that person needs to see it. And also reaching new audiences is actually quite hard on social media to plug away and actually reach new people. But when you're actually got your newsletter, there's no algorithm in place as such. It's just a case of firing it off to all of your people in your mailing list, and it's down to them whether they click open or not, rather than social media telling them whether they're going to see it or not. So I think that's a really nice part of the kind of mail place that we've got.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you're not always going to get 100% of people opening your newsletter, but at least it's kind of up to you and them, not some kind of social media middleman that's not even a man, it's an algorithm. So I think that's a really, really valuable point. And I think newsletters used like in conjunction with social media gives you a lot of really powerful ways to speak to your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that note, this social media that you put out there, Jess, I've actually been doing some kind of like sort of small research, I suppose, on the back of that, because I obviously follow your account daily, but there's been posts that you've put out recently over the last month, and obviously you're posting daily at the moment, where I actually haven't had that put in my feed. I've actually had to physically go and search for you, and I've got, I just posted this, and I've actually got notifications on when you post. So
interesting.
And I don't get notifications every time you post, it seems, which is really interesting, because I want to know what you're up to. I want to see it, but clearly social media is not always pushing that to me. Whereas your newsletter, as soon as it comes in my inbox, I literally drag it into my box of things to read, and when I then read my newsletters, you're like the first one that I read. So because I make that choice, because it's in my inbox, I decide when I want to read it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas the social media, clearly Instagram has been pushing some of your content to me, and I've liked it and commented and engaged straight away. And other times I'm like, crikey, just there's like 3 posts that I haven't actually like seen or read, or so it just shows that it's super powerful in that respect.
And I can really tell when the algorithm has gone, no, I don't deem this worthy, because I'll get like 7 likes, and then others I'll get 100, and I'm like, okay, well, what is better about this one? And often it's because people have engaged with it early on.
Yeah,
they've liked it, they've commented on it, and maybe they've shared it. But if one doesn't get that early traction, it won't be shown to many other people. So I think it's very much about that, like what happens next. But that's probably a podcast for another day.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's just talk really quickly. Like, now everyone understands the power of a newsletter. Let's talk about like how to grow that newsletter and how to find people that would be interested in it. I think for a lot of people, like the obvious thing is to have a sign up link on your website, and to publish it on social media and talk about what you're doing there. But I'm curious, Toby, kind of what you've done to, grow your list and get to where you are now.
I've been very personal with respect of how I've grown my email list. I have got a very small kind of call to action on my website that I do get some signups for every now and again, but I think I need to work on it. But all of the majority of people that signed up to my mailing list has actually been in conversation either through email or WhatsApp or social media, etc., where I've actually said, hey, look, I've got a newsletter, and I've told them the reason why they should follow it or sign up to it. And I've had virtually 100% people sign up because
That's
of that.
great.
So I kind of do it on quite a personal level, which takes a little bit of work, but it gets people on there, and the people then that are on there are actually reading it. I think my read rate's about 89% roughly,
Nice.
so 88, 89%, which is quite
Yeah.
high. So that's how I've grown mine. But of course, mine's very small. I want to exponentially grow it. So, I'm all ears for any tips, Jess.
Yeah, no, I just before I go into like how to grow in more detail, it's worth remembering that actually you want a really, really engaged like group of people on your mailing list, and that like there's no point growing for the sake of growing if 75% of those people don't actually care and are just gonna unsubscribe and all that kind of thing. So I think it's really worth thinking about like who you're promoting your newsletter to and who you're asking to go on it, and don't get upset if someone does unsubscribe, because it means that you've just got a more engaged group of people on your mailing list now. I used to get really upset whenever someone unsubscribed, but then I think, well, that's now just, they would have never have bought from me or engaged with me if they're not interested in this newsletter.
Yeah.
So it's a way to kind of get more engagement and a better open rate if people unsubscribe, so just bear that in mind.
Yeah.
So the lead magnet tool, I think, is the best way to kind of to grow a newsletter quickly if you're offering something really, really valuable to people, whether it's talking from a business point of view, because again, I want you guys to think like businesses, whether you're offering a free course, some video content, a downloadable, anything like that, something that people, when they sign up, they can download, and you can set up pretty much every piece of mailing list software to do this automatically, just in case you're worried about the technical aspect of that. But I think offering something like that entices someone to sign up is great. But again, it has to be relevant to the content that you're going to be putting out there. Because again, if you say, yeah, I'm going to teach you how to build a race car, and then the next thing that you send is, a race report, it might unsubscribe immediately. So just bear that in mind. I think showing real value within your newsletter content and then sharing snippets of that is a really good way to kind of promote it. Or sharing feedback on the newsletter. If someone replies to you going, oh, this was so good, so engaging, so helpful, can't wait to see more of your journey, ask them if you can share that on social media and just take a screenshot and then, link it back to wherever people can sign up on your website. I think just making sure people know that you have a newsletter is like one of the biggest steps that you can take. And if let's say you're in a Facebook group and someone's having a conversation about, I don't know, how to choose new wheels for a race car, and you've already done a newsletter post on that, that's a great place to promote it without being like overly promotional. Like, again, here's a helpful bit of content, it's on my newsletter. And if within your newsletter or like the web-based version, you can allow people to sign up, then win-win. And I actually do this in some of my non-racing mentor newsletters. Like halfway down, I have has this been shared with you, or have you found it on social media? If you want more, sign up, kind of thing. So it means I can share it on social media. And if people see it that aren't already on the list, they can choose to sign up if they wish.
Yeah, which is really valuable because they're reading it and go, oh, I really like this content. How do I sign up? You're giving it, like, you're basically, there it is.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about, the tools that facilitate sending out a newsletter. I know that there are some drivers out there who would just, copy and paste a load of email addresses into their email client and just send them out. And that's fine if you've got a small list. Although please remember to blind carbon copy BCC people and not CC them, because it's really, really, really illegal to show everyone's email addresses to everyone else. So please bear that in mind, and we'll get onto that in more detail in a sec. But actually there are loads more valuable tools out there that are going to be much, much easier to use than just, using your normal Gmail or whatever it is. So I always used to use MailChimp, and I know you do as well, Toby.
Yes, current one I'm using.
It's free up to a certain amount of subscribers. So for the majority of you, it will be free, at least to begin with. And it's just a brilliant, easy to use tool that can help you design and write just really good looking newsletters. So I think for most people, that's probably the best place to start. Do you agree, Toby?
Yeah, completely. I signed up to MailChimp, did a little research of obviously various tools that are out there. And for me, it was just, yeah, just a free tool that I've got, lots of customizational things to do to get obviously my brand on there. I'm not bound to obviously the MailChimp looking thing. And it's really simple to use. Once I've got my list, it's so easy to write a list. I can create a template. And yeah, once you've wrote your article, a few clicks and off it goes. So
Yeah.
it's super simple.
And it has lots of other powerful kind of features built in. I think you have to pay for it now, but you can set up automations with MailChimp, which is really handy if you do have a lead magnet and like once someone signs up, you want to automatically send them something. You can do that through there, and you can also segment your lists. So if you do have, people who are fans, people who are prospects, people who are sponsors, you can kind of tag them as such, and you can do this with pretty much any mailing software as well.
Yeah, it's really cool doing that, actually. I've got my list tagged like that, so I've got I know who's in what list, and I know who I'm sending out to, and I can be really specific. I can kind of narrow down to just my fans, just my prospects, or just my sponsors, which is kind of quite a cool thing, because if you're doing a post-race weekend report to just your sponsors, you can write something really engaging just to your sponsors, and this is the return we've got this weekend, or this is what we've achieved, etc. And you can narrow that right down to the people that sponsor you. So that's quite a cool tool, and it's really easy to do.
Another tool that I use, so this is what I use now for my mailing list, just because it's a bit more powerful for the amount of people I have, is ActiveCampaign. You have to pay for it. It's not expensive. I think I pay $30-ish a month, something like that. But it allows you to communicate with your audience in a really, really targeted and specific way. So again, you can segment it out in a way that's, fans, prospects, sponsors, etc. But within one email, you can say this bit is only for sponsors. So let's say you do a race report and you don't want your fans to see, we grew someone's sales by X amount this month, because they might not be interested. You can just say, I only want prospects and sponsors to see that paragraph. So that's really, really valuable. Like if you are trying to be really, really targeted and want to save yourself some time, sending out 3 different emails, you can just kind of say, oh, this paragraph is only for these people.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah, which is quite kind of cool. But ActiveCampaign is quite complex, but it has really, really, really powerful automations in that I can get stuck in like a crazy flow chart of if this, do this, and send this on this date 5 days after someone's opened this thing. So it's really, really powerful from a business point of view, and perhaps a bit more than most drivers will need, but it's worth looking at if you do want that kind of control and that kind of automation further down the line. But I also want to talk about a new tool it's quite popular and cool at the moment, and it's a bit different to, I would say, other kind of mailing list software out there, and it's Substack. So I guess the best way to describe it is that it's like a halfway between a blog and halfway between a newsletter, and I love it. I made one at the beginning of lockdown, which I've closed just because it was a lot of work, which was interviews with car people. Then I have my Jess of All Trades newsletter, which again is about like entrepreneurial life. And then I've now got this new electric car future of mobility newsletter as well. But what I really like about Substack is that because it's part blog, there's no like faffing around with design or anything like that. It looks great, like straight out of the box. I just add an image on it, write some words, some headers, and then send it off. So for me, as someone who's just trying to get content out there, that's really valuable. But it also means that, you can post it on social media as if it were a blog post. But then when you publish that blog post, it actually just goes out to everyone who's signed up to receive it. So if you're a driver with a really strong narrative and lots to kind of say about your journey or something that you're doing within your niche, Substack might be one to look at. And again, in the show notes, I'll give you some examples of great kind of Substack newsletters out there, just so you can see how it's done.
Sounds awesome, Jess. I think that's a really cool tool. And I know from the newsletter, Jess of All Trades, that you sent out using Substack, like you say, it's super clear and nice to read. So that's quite encouraging.
Yeah, yeah. And you can do this kind of thing with Ghost as well, which is a blogging platform. And you can also do it in a roundabout way with medium.com. So if your content is very more along the lines of an article or a blog post, they're the ones to look at.
Yeah.
And I can answer questions on any of those platforms because I've used them all. So if you do have questions, wing them my way.
Super, sounds good.
Yeah.
I think a little note that I've just been thinking about while you were talking there, Jess, is just that with regards to, I mentioned earlier about obviously you're not bound to the algorithms of social media, but I think what's really nice with email lists is that it's not going to disappear. Let's say one day Twitter decides that they no longer want the platform, and you've got 100,000 followers on there or something.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that platform shuts down. I mean, it's very unlikely because these platforms are so huge now. It would be very unlikely they'd disappear. But what if they ever did? How would you then engage with that audience? How would you then speak to the people that follow you, that regularly interact with you? Whereas email lists, that's your email address. That's your space. That's you own that. That's your property. That can't just be taken away from you. So it is something to bear in mind. And just doing this podcast today, Jess, has just made me kind of realize a little bit more that I need to get back onto my newsletter and put a bit more focus to it, because it's very powerful. It's super engaged, and although my numbers are lower in terms of the people that I email, the fact that it is so engaged is so good. But actually, it's my control. It's my space. It's I own it. So I think it's quite powerful.
Yeah, and I think even if, let's say, MailChimp were to stop working for whatever reason, you'd still be able to get those email addresses out and put them on another platform. Whereas if, like you say, if Twitter goes down, you can't just take all your followers and move them somewhere else.
No.
So completely agree there. There is just one thing that I want to touch on is GDPR, which is a data protection law. There's a lot that you need to do to be compliant. And even if you just have a small email list, you need to really think about, data protection and what you're doing with people's email addresses, which is why I mentioned the don't carbon copy people in. But it also means that you can't just randomly sign people up to your newsletter if they haven't already agreed. And ideally, they'll be going in and typing their email address themselves, checking a box that says, yes, I want the newsletter. So just bear that in mind. Do some research on GDPR. I'm by no means an expert. I just know what I know from, being compliant through my own businesses. But it's really worth just looking that up.
Yeah, it's hugely important. You all need to be compliant these days. There's lots of rules in place, but don't be scared by that. Just a quick Google search can kind of help you out, and just make sure you follow the kind of rules. But most of these platforms do help you out and assist you with the GDPR anyway. So I know through MailChimp, you're compliant based on using their tools.
Yeah, absolutely. So just do some research. And again, if you have questions, you can, message me on social media, and I'll do my best to point you in the direction of some resources that can help.
Yeah, wicked. It's been that's been a good podcast this week, Jess.
Yeah, I want to write some newsletters.
Guys that are listening that have a newsletter or that are looking to create one, if you've got any wins there, don't forget to post them in the Facebook group on our Racer Mentor group community group, because I think it'd be really cool to hear any wins you've got, and anything that you've any advice that you want to share, please do. I'd love to hear from you. It'd be really cool to understand, and I wouldn't mind signing up to a few more of the drivers that are in the community, because I think it'd be nice to hear your stories in a bit more detail. But Jess, shall we get on to our driver of the week this week? I think you should announce this one.
Yeah, so our driver of the week is another Podium Club member who has been just working really, really hard, but I think he just really understands the process and himself as a driver really well. So our driver of the week for this week is Chris Threadgill. So congratulations, Chris. If you want to follow him on social media, he is Chris Threadgill Racing on Instagram. And as always, we'll put in the show notes, which you can find on blog.racingmentor.com, we'll put links to all his stuff. But I think the thing to point out about Chris is that he really understands where his strengths are. So he's like a real businessman, which I think is really important for seeking sponsorship. But he also understands where he's less strong. And I think that's really important, because it means that he can go out and learn those things and, seek support on them and, better himself in that way. But just his work ethic is worthy of driver of the week, I think.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, I know Chris. I raced with him in the Genetic Racing Drivers Club last year, so become quite good friends with him now. And yeah, he's a great guy in that respect, because I think it's really refreshing in today's climate is to kind of be aware of the things that perhaps you're not so good at, and how you can then obviously better yourself, and it makes you more of a rounded person. But he's so hard work and dedicated, and I love the fact that Chris just throws himself into something, and he's not afraid to learn and obviously to push himself forward. And I think that's a really nice kind of quality you need as a driver, on the track, because you need to be able to push yourself hard and try and achieve big things, and also in the sponsorship world, the dedication that he's got, I'm sure he'll succeed in the long term.
Yeah, totally agree. So congratulations, Chris, and welcome to our growing club of drivers of the week.
Mega congratulations.
So next week we're going to be talking about product sponsorship versus monetary sponsorship, which I'm really excited about. But until then, if you guys have any questions, you can find me at Racing Mentor on pretty much every social channel, or you can email jess@racingmentor.com if you have questions. Your questions kind of they help us work out what to kind of put onto the podcast, so they're really helpful to us. But obviously I will get back to you with resources, further information, advice, etc., to help you as well. So don't be afraid to hit me up on social media or drop me an email.
Yeah, mega. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye bye.